All right, we're live. Give me a minute. Make sure I'm live on Facebook. There it is. Y'all heard the bing. We're live on Facebook. Thank everyone for tuning in. It's Jamil Salib Zamir out of Manning, South Carolina, with the final installment of Fentanyl, however you want to pronounce it. I thank everyone for tuning in. I want to say at the outstart that I did get a message from someone who was an addict, and they were explaining to me that they could not watch the commentaries because the commentaries that I was doing brought back flashbacks and made them feel somewhat guilty maybe of the things that they did, but that they were grateful that by God's permission we had taken on the challenge of trying to bring awareness to this issue. Again, this is Fentanyl Part 7. This is a crisis that has been here for over 20 years, and it will get worse. Yesterday, we posted up that they had bust a $3 million operation coming out of Los Angeles. And these are little splinter towns like Manning, Sumter, Columbia, Somerton. I believe some places in Somerton, they actually grow marijuana in their backyard. So it's just drugs is becoming prevalent. This is the drugged out generation, the drugged out society. So for someone who to talk about drugs and trying to counteract the effects of drugs, the drug addicts are not going to like that. The drug sellers are not going to like that. So you put yourself literally on a chopping block for trying to help people in this day and time. And I realized after watching documentary after documentary over the years how difficult it was to fight the battle, and there has not been a dent in it. Drug dealers aren't going anywhere. Drug users aren't going anywhere. But where I'm teaching from, and those like me teach from, is from a higher plateau of understanding. We understand that we must attack the problem from a spiritual realm in order to deal with Satan. I can't seem to remember we war not against flesh and blood. There's something bigger out there that is influencing our decision making based on who has the most money, who has the most things, who is the most cocky, the most strong, the most arrogant. So before we get started today, I want to go into two biblical scriptures. It's going to be very short today. I got two documentary clips, and then I want to, and these are based upon trying to seek help for those who need help. Because believe it or not, we're going to need the help. Now, I want to go to first to 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5 of the King James Version of the Bible. And the reason, no, this is the New International Version of the Bible. And the reason I do that is because of the way I claim to be as a understander of God's knowledge. The Christian, this is a Bible Belt. The Christian community, black mostly, have already set their minds on two things: a white Jesus and what we call voodoo or root, where you just say a thing and think because you say it, a person is going to fall to what you say. That's why we love to say things like making your enemies your footstool and you don't mess with a child of God. Well, who said you a child of God? Where do we get these titles from? We just say it. Hold claim to it and believe that it's us. No matter how messed up our life is, how dysfunctional. You're not married. You never had children. If you did, you got children from different men, different women. It doesn't matter. The point is, this is Satan's world. And you can do all the good you want to do in this world. But if the people who have hijacked God and understanding do not approve of you, you will not get the approval of the people, because we are, quote unquote, dick riders. We ride anybody's dick who got something that we don't have, who appear to be more confident than we are. And I have not seen any different than that, from the gangs to the politicians to the church leaders. Everybody ride dick. Everybody is on somebody's jock, as we used to say back in the day. And excuse my language, I have to be that raw. So in 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5 of the New International Version of the Bible, it says, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days," which is the days that we're in. Now, these last days could be 1,000 years, 10,000 years. Don't mean it's going to end tomorrow. I'm not making no predictions about when the world is going to end. No one knows that. And no one knows what world is going to end or how it's going to end. But what is absolutely true is there's more than one metaphysical world. Like the rich think they're in a world. The poor are in a world, so they want the ghetto life. The church folks are in a world. The bikers are in a world. And the book says that Allah God is the Lord of all of the worlds. The God who sent Jesus, the God who created Adam and Eve, the God who destroyed the world in the book of Revelations, the Lord of all of the worlds, okay? 2 Timothy 3:1-5 says, but mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people. Now, the people that most of us see in society who appear to have a lot, I see them different, most of them. Who appear to be close to God, by God's permission, I see them different, most of them. They're the people that are described in this 2 Timothy 3-5 who think that their way is the only way, and they are so evil in their thinking that if you do not do things their way in the name of the God that they claim to serve, they will sit back and watch you die just to say, I told you, they ain't believe in Christianity. They ain't believe in what we believe. Told you they was going to die. That is an evil person. That is a wicked person. A person who will see you struggling and step over you. The book talks about the Good Samaritan. There are not many Good Samaritans because they're not doing good for the people who need it. They're doing good for the people that they want to. As a servant of God and community, you do for the people who need it. Preachers, pastors, politicians, all are supposed to serve the people. Not the ones you choose. Oh, I like him, I don't like them. I like them, I don't like them. So in order to make the world look better, especially in the black community, we deny. So the Timothy says, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. God's power can build and God's power can destroy. We're talking about fentanyl. This is part 7. Just some generalized information about the drug, about how it's destroying and what the projection of how this drug will affect our future and how we are so out of control when it comes to it, the synthetic drug, that we're going to begin to see our loved ones fall off as a result of the drug. But the unfortunate part of it is that, especially in the black community, we will do as we did with AIDS, HIV. Oh, they died of pneumonia. No, they died from complications of AIDS. How many people did they sleep with that you did not tell actually have been exposed to AIDS? 20, 30. Now you got a community of infected people walking around because we want to be quiet. We don't want nobody to know. When I first met my wife now, she said that rumors in the street was that I had AIDS. I snatched her up, went to Dr. Keith's office, and both of us took an AIDS test. And I take an AIDS test every year or every 2 years, whenever it's permitted. But we want to keep things hidden. Our children are on ADHD and ADD medication. Those medications are methamphetamines. They have meth in them, the drug meth. Meth is in those pills, and when they pop those pills, they got a 30-day supply. They pop all of them within a week. When they get the refill, they're going to go looking for a substitute, methamphetamine on the street level, which is now being laced with fentanyl. So I wanted to put that out there. Be careful who you believe is so godly because the Bible, according to it, says that the church is filled with demons and devils and people after money. Not all of it. Not all of them. Of course, all don't fall in that category. But once you follow a specific guideline, you become mechanical. You see they dance around the same, but God, any new thing that comes out, paradigm shift, the next level, or whatever they're saying, that's the elevation. Whoever starts it, they go with it. And when you're in a world, and I'm not attacking my Christian family, y'all understand that, but you all attack everybody else on a different level. You do that. You don't even realize you do it. You try to make people you. Manning Ministerial Alliance rejected me after a while, after all I did, because they wanted to make me follow their way. I lost a great job on the radio station because they wanted to make me follow their way. So if you don't do it the way we want to do it, you out. I lost connections with all the bike clubs because they want to make you follow their way. In other words, you cannot be a man in society. 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5. Read it for yourself. Very good, very informative. And I want to read John 8 and 41 through 44 of the King James Version of the Bible very quickly. This is where the elite of society were talking to Jesus, putting him on trial and pointing out to Jesus, well, you bad because you don't even have a father. You're not like us. We got fathers. We follow the rules. So John 8, 41 through 44 says, ye do the deeds of your father. Then said they to him, Jesus is saying to them, you do the deeds of your father. Same thing they did, you do. Then they said to Jesus, we be not born of fornication. We got a daddy. At least we got a daddy. Where your daddy at? We have one Father, even God. But listen to Christ. Jesus says unto them, if God were your Father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God. Neither came I of myself. That is to check you Christians who make Jesus God. He says, I came from God. I did not come from myself. Therefore, he cannot be God. I neither came I of myself, but he sent me. This is in the King James Version of the book. I got to challenge you all, because I realize over the years that people who do things but don't do it in the name of Christianity gets blackballed and pushed to the side like we're sinners, like we're bad people. When Jesus says, why would you bother someone doing right if they are not against us, they are for us? Which church in Manning or Sumter or Columbia, I don't know them all, but who's talking about abuse and drug overdose in the streets? They're only talking about religion, and if you follow us, you will get this, this, and this. Time is out for that. And we are taught that when you see a devil, you point it out, even if it's in you. So Jesus says, neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? Even because ye cannot hear my words. In other words, no matter what good you speak, when the people who are in charge decide that you are nobody, they don't understand a thing you're saying. You're bad regardless. We did the Stop the Violence rally for murdered victims. That was a good thing, but we were made bad regardless. And now since we did that very first one about 2.5 to 3 years ago, and over 20 people have been murdered from Sumter to Summerton to Clarendon County, and if not murdered, shot. But never will you hear, thanks to Jamil, thanks to Dale Castro Powell, thanks to all who started this organization to make it a reality. No, because they are not who we want them to be. We're talking about fentanyl. And we're talking about how the message does not get put out there. Y'all don't share this. I am so surprised on Facebook that you all hit me up on Messenger about this, and now that I talk about it, you don't share it. I am so surprised at the cowardice of you hardcore street dudes. Why do you ask for something and don't back it when it comes to you? You leave good people out there to die and then put on a t-shirt talking about my nigga, my man. But you support and share stuff from people who could care less whether you live or die. 44 says, ye are of your father, the devil. And the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own. He is a liar, and he is the father of lies. I wanted to start with that. This is Jamil Salib Zamir out of Manning, South Carolina. We're not going to be long today. I got my sister with me on my wrist. I got my sister with me, rest in peace, on my neck. My sister Tiny. We're not going to be long today. I don't think you'll be able to see me unless you happen to snatch it up on Facebook. On Facebook, I think I'm still being blocked. I got a message today from YouTube saying, "Hey, you used some footage that you didn't have permission to use, even though I had permission to use it." Always on the brother, but you have to keep going. Today was difficult for me. I suffer now from what they call vertigo because of my heart issues, and every time I try to get out of the bed since this morning, I was so dizzy I couldn't get up. I didn't get out of bed until 3 o'clock today. And now I'm trying to finish everything up, because when you make a promise, you keep your word if you can. I thank you all for tuning in. Give us a minute to get the intro in. Then we're going to play a few clips and we will be done. I thank you all so much. Please like and share this information as we will continue on to try and fight and spread knowledge the way we were given it.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for tuning in to this month installment of the 19 Report. I am your host, Brother Johnny. I walked a thin line between right and wrong, took my fears to God, then I wrote this song. The spirit kept calling, so I answered the phone, and then I manned up and got some backbone. My mind resonates at a much higher tone, solid foundation, empire zone. 3 mountains, I'm in one, right to left counted, 9 and then 1, left to right switch it, 1 and then 9, west to east, south to north, a thin line. I know Christ exists, cause his mercy allows me a chance to stand 3 on a square. Yeah, we in there. This is Brother Johnny of Groove 19 Promotions.
All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. Jamil Salib Zamir, Brother Johnny out of Manning, South Carolina. We got 2 clips. One is going to be 7 minutes and 48 seconds. Again, on Instagram, it will be just like you're listening to a radio talk show broadcast. So we're going to be doing it like that. Again, we have to tackle the taboo subjects. You have to talk about molestation. You have to talk about rape. You have to talk about murder. You have to talk about the things that people are experiencing in their life, drug abuse and other things, but you have to talk about them. We have to keep them at the forefront. They must be spoken of. I understand, but it's not a great feeling in my heart to know how my heart is and what I feel in my heart for my people, and to have other people who are really doing what they're doing because that's the mechanics of it, and to have others who desire to be superstars, so they'll latch on to anything, and to have those people in positions of power. But honestly, if there is no God, if the only God there is the God that they serve, then we're in trouble, because that means if we don't follow their way, whether it's right or wrong, then we will never see success in any way. And I know my life is very difficult, and I don't expect my children around me to do what I do. I don't expect my wife to do it, because they see suffering as Job's wife saw him suffer. And Job's wife told him, why don't you just curse God and die? And that's how your children are, your spouse, all of them. They think you're wasting your time. But if you understand God and how he came to you, you have to brush them off, all of it, and keep going. Because either you're going to serve God or you're going to serve man. You can't play both sides of the fence. Naturally, you're in a world where man's rules win. So the people that you see successful, God allows it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're more godly than you. So thank you all for tuning in. But these things we must talk about. I think that's all I had on the list. Again, I want to apologize. Someone did send me a message and saying that to hear this subject talked about was difficult because they went through, and I went through addiction. And that's why I talk about it. And I have children who are addicted. So I don't just talk about this for generalized. I talk about this because it's what I'm experiencing. So let's go into the first, the very first part of this. It's going to be 7 minutes and 48 seconds. And as I told you, we will be more on the technical side to correct some of the things that I said that I have to correct. So I would rather the people who are knowledgeable in the subject to say it. And that way, it'll come directly from the person who knows it. So let's get into that first. Let me get the screen up. And then I'm going to play this. I'm going to be silent while it's playing. I may stop it for a minute to say a thing or two, but mostly it'll be the broadcast. So let's go.
The Drug Enforcement Administration's warning of a surge in overdose deaths from fake prescription drugs. The warning comes as the CDC estimates more than 93,000 Americans died, a record high, from drug doses in 2020 alone. The agency says the counterfeit pills are being laced with fentanyl and methamphetamine. It's the DEA's first public safety alert in 6 years. The last was in 2015, when officials warned of a rise in fentanyl-laced heroin. For more, I want to bring in Dr. Ayanna Jordan. She's an assistant professor of psychiatry at Yale University School of Medicine. Doctor, thank you so much for spending some time with us on what is a really important and probably too often discussed subject, but one that really affects people in incredible ways. How broadly has the pandemic impacted access to addiction treatment?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on and covering this such important topic. The pandemic has made it much more difficult for people to access substance use treatment. I try not to use abuse because that's a derogatory term. So really wanting to make sure people understand we're talking about substance use disorder, substance use treatment. It's made it harder because there is difficulty accessing physicians. A lot of people have scaled down in terms of their in-person office hours. And so many people are relying on telehealth in order to see their physicians. And if you don't have access to Wi-Fi or the technology to be able to access treatment, it's much, much harder. There have been some gains within the pandemic to make it easier for people who are already in treatment to get access to their medication. For example, there is a medication that's called methadone that treats people with opioid use disorder, and it is much easier in terms of them to get their medication. They used to have to come in every single day, up to 6 days a week to get their medication. And during the pandemic, there were regulations to allow them to get their medication for 14 days or 28 days instead of coming every day. But again, that's for people who are already engaged in treatment. And so it's much more difficult because there's just a lot less availability of physician time. Also, there's been a decrease specifically in addiction psychiatry specialists going into the field. So it's really hard overall, and we're going to see the consequences of people not being able to get into addiction treatment. We're already seeing them now and have been, quite frankly, for the last 10 years.
Yeah. So back to that new warning from the DEA. What kind of counterfeit pills are being found, and what makes them so dangerous and deadly?
Yeah. So what's happening, and again, I just wanted to reiterate that this is not something that is new. I mean, I'm glad that the DEA is talking about it, but again, we've been seeing this uptick in drug overdose death from fentanyl for the last 5 to 6 years. And so what the DEA is bringing attention to is pills that are laced with fentanyl. They are really, seen as actual opioid pills, something that you would see like a Percocet or medicine that you would get from the actual doctor. But again, it is it's counterfeit. So this is what people are coming in contact with, and is really causing the unintentional overdoses. Now, one of the things I want to say is that pills are not the only way that people are using this these substances and are being exposed to fentanyl. We're seeing it in methamphetamine. Exactly, we're seeing it in Xannies, or what's called Xanny bars. We're seeing it in heroin and cocaine. So the real issue is not having access to a safe supply of substances, and people not knowing that there is this fentanyl, which is a man-made opioid that is in the supply. So I get that there's a focus on the pills, but I just want us to be more broad reaching and understanding that people are getting access to fentanyl through methamphetamine, Xanax, heroin, cocaine, other things beyond the pills, which is contributing to this massive increase in drug overdose deaths, for sure.
No, yeah, absolutely, and that's a good reminder. How can users tell whether they've gotten fentanyl or meth instead of something else?
Such a good question. So as an addiction specialist, one of the things that I talk about all the time is the best way that you know that you can, to know if something is in your substance is to test it. And unfortunately, in the United States, we have no way to test the supply that people are using. And so one of the things that a lot of harm reductionists and addiction specialists are calling for is for safe testing sites. And these are implemented in Spain and Switzerland and Belgium and Austria and Portugal, and even in the Netherlands, where people are actually able to test to see if they have fentanyl in their illicit substance, whether it be a pill, whether it be cocaine, whether it be methamphetamines. And that way, if they find the presence of fentanyl, they know not to use it. Unfortunately, this is not widely available in this country, and it is really leading to unnecessary and reversible deaths. So when I am treating patients in the clinic, I actually give them fentanyl strips, and I teach them how they can dilute the product, use the strip, and if it 2 lines come up, you know that it's positive and you don't want to use it. But again, those are for people who are already in treatment, and lots of people who use substances are not in treatment. We know it's
Right.
harder to get access to treatment in the pandemic. So we want to increase access to drug checking sites. But the only way to know, because you can't tell by looking at it, you can't tell, is to actually test the substance itself.
And for those who are battling drug addiction, especially right now in the pandemic, where there may be concern about access to people like you who can help with this, what resources would you recommend, and where should they turn if they're seeking treatment?
Yeah, thank you so much. One of the best resources is SAMHSA, which really is the mental health and addiction site for the country. And so to access that, you want to go to, that's the SAMHSA National Helpline. It's 1-800-662-HELP or 1-800-666-4357. For people who do have access to the internet, another easy way is to go to samhsa.gov, SAMHSA.gov, and then you can key in where you can get access to addiction treatment by your state and also in your county. So that's a really nice way to try and get help, for sure.
Well, Dr. Ayanna Jordan, we appreciate you taking some time on an issue that continues to affect so many across the country amid all the other problems we have. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, that was the first part of what I wanted to share with you. The information that you could contact SAMHSA. I did contact SAMHSA. Also, I when I was addicted to pain pills in Clarendon County, I did work with the Clarendon Behavioral Health Service in Clarendon County. That's I think their number is 803-435-2121. The building is very familiar. You know where it is. It's right down there next to Hayes Samuels, rest in peace to Hayes Samuels. It's right next door to the Samuels funeral home, to the Samuels home, right on the corner coming into town in Manning, over to your right or to your left. And then that brick building that's over there. I did work with them. I didn't take any methadone or anything like that. It was more of psychological counseling, to just talk about how I felt, just talk about how the drug had taken over my mental state, and how it made me feel so good that all of the stresses as a black male with 4 children and a wife, and not being able to provide for them the way that I would like to, that I was able to express those things. And I can't remember everything because it was so many years ago, but they did help in a lot of ways. So locally, you can do that, or you can call SAMHSA. SAMHSA, you can look that up on the internet. And there are other places. I think McLeod Regional has a rehabilitation center as well. And you can do these things privately. I would hope that we would be able to be a little bit more public with our addictions, and so that we can have people that we can physically see that can talk about it. I remember our time across town and seeing these beautiful women and men turn into addicts, and now fighting their way back. Some of them didn't make it. And along with addiction becomes promiscuous sex. And with promiscuous sex becomes drug addicted children, unwanted children, unwanted disease, and all of these other elements that come along with that. So it is a cycle. We're talking about Fentanyl Part 7, fighting for your life. And when I say your life, I'm talking about the bloodline. We talked yesterday about generational curses. We're fighting to reverse those curses, to change those curses. And by hiding from them, you're not beating them. So some of us, we get older and we stay away from our family, and we cling on to another family, but you're not beating that. You haven't even addressed it. You don't want to talk about it. So you're not a candidate for God's work. Most of us who say we're doing God's work are doing generalized work. So I want to play this last part. I think this is, let me see. As I told you that this is what we would be doing today. I want to say this, though. Yeah, I want to show this first before we move on. Let me share the screen real quick. About fentanyl. As you can see, that's a penny. A lethal dose of fentanyl for most is 10 times smaller than a penny. It's just crumbs. And what's happening with fentanyl is that we're using the patches now, fentanyl patches, and those same crumbs that you see there on this image, and you can look it up on the internet through Instagram at another time. Or, as I stated, we're very excited about the 7-part series that we just did this week. That 7-part series will be placed on a USB drive, all 7 parts. And with your donations, you will be able to receive that as a part of our thank you to you for our YouTube page as well as our Facebook page. So this will be available as a teaching tool to churches, to school, to anywhere. It's very valuable. You may not use what we say verbatim, but the information is definitely information you want to utilize. Again, fentanyl on the other side, on the addiction side, is very deadly. Yeah, I wanted to show that, and I also wanted to show at the end the testing strip and how you can use the test strip. But now I want you to see this part of the video, and after this, we're going to close out. So I'm going to start this. This is 11 minutes. It's not very long. I may stop it in the middle, but I want you to hear the stories of people who see people die from fentanyl and continue taking the drug, the dangers of the drug, and what we must do. Because I'm telling you, our children, they're locking themselves in their rooms. They're talking to people online. They're doing things that they normally wouldn't do. They know the internet 10 times better than we do. They know how to manipulate the internet 10 times better than we do. And we are literally facing a crisis of unimaginable proportions, but we don't want to address the problem. So let's go into this real quickly. This is Fentanyl Part 7, Fighting for Our Lives.
Welcome back. Good to have you with us here at 5:30. Jim Scott along with Tammy Melchuk in the 17 News Center. It is a painkiller so potent just touching it could bring you to your knees. It's fentanyl. And all this week, 17 News is exploring the growing threat it represents. Fentanyl, a highly addictive, highly lethal pain medication, has ravaged dozens of Kern County families, including at least one, as you will see tonight, more than once. First formulated as a miracle anesthesia, fentanyl is increasingly showing up around the country and right here at home in a deadly street version.
17's Robert Price has been exploring this growing danger, and tonight in Part 3, he explores why we're suddenly seeing such a prevalence of fentanyl, the counterfeit killer.
Fentanyl was a problem before the pandemic.
They're selling death.
Straight fentanyl. He was laying right there on the bed.
Will they kill you? Sure.
This should not have happened.
You know, and it happened to me. And he was trying to do CPR on him. We see it more and more.
She was a good kid, but she tried to self-medicate.
There's nothing else you can do, and they said no.
There's ways you can die.
People who are dying from overdoses of fentanyl.
I can't treat you once you're dead.
Killing our children.
We have to, as a community, figure this out.
There's a pandemic out there of a type not associated with any kind of virus. Vaccines, social distancing, mask mandates, they're of no value. This is strictly a man-made pandemic, and it's built on profit, addiction, and deception.
This new powerful headlamp is destroying all major flashlight brands because of its revolutionary wide-beam LED technology. This brilliant speleologist built a revolution.
That's a part of the
agent of death
part
in
of the
this
price you
pandemic
pay to play
is
these
fentanyl,
videos.
a synthetic opioid 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says it killed 81,000 Americans between May 2019 and May 2020. In 2020, fentanyl, in combination with other drugs and by itself, killed, according to the coroner's office, at least 125 people in Kern County. That's 2.5 fentanyl overdose deaths per week countywide, 10 a month, throughout a year in which almost all the headlines were devoted to another killer, COVID-19. Perhaps you've heard of fentanyl. Perhaps you recognize it as the poison that killed musicians Prince in 2016 and Tom Petty in 2017, and very nearly killed Demi Lovato in 2018. That makes fentanyl old news, right? Except it's not. It's here now, in Kern County, still. And it's worse than ever. And if it becomes as prevalent here as it is in the northeastern United States, it will get worse still. Last year, 10 western states reported a near doubling of deaths from synthetic opioids, primarily fentanyl, from the previous year. And deaths from fentanyl have only accelerated since then. Illegal pill seizures, one major indicator of the depth of the problem, are way up. The Kern County Sheriff's Department, to name one agency involved in the fight against fentanyl, seized 7,800 pills in 2019. In 2020, it seized 65,000, an 8-fold increase. Through the first 19 weeks of 2021, the KCSO already has seized more than 70,000 pills, putting it on track to confiscate 190,000, nearly triple 2020's haul. And that number doesn't include the confiscations from a pair of March 26th raids by a multi-jurisdictional task force led by the Federal Department of Homeland Security that resulted in 9 arrests and the seizure of more than 380 pounds of methamphetamine and 8 pounds of fentanyl, the equivalent of 30,000 counterfeit oxy pills. And when seizures rise, deaths do too. Fatal fentanyl overdoses have visited every state and virtually every city, including Bakersfield.
Both my sons died the same way.
In March of last year, Dan Hart lost his 28-year-old son, Dylan. Found him unresponsive in his room. Called 911. It was too late. 9 months later, in December, 4 days after Christmas, incredibly, Hart lost his other son, 23-year-old Cameron. He found Cameron unresponsive in his room. He called 911, and again, it was too late. 2 sons, same year, same drug. Cameron's COVID-delayed funeral was February 2nd. 30 friends attended. Several spoke of his irreverent wit, his love of life, his ability to brighten a room. Dimitri Martfeld was his best friend.
Cam could take anyone sad and turn their day completely around within 30 seconds.
They also spoke of the insidious omnipresence of the drug that took Cameron Hart, and in recent years, others in their group of friends. Cameron's friend, Matthew Hanisch, used his time at the podium to deliver a message.
Well, basically, I just asked everyone to stop doing these drugs. Like, I lost one of my best friends, someone I'm never gonna get back again. Like, someone that could never be replaced. You understand? And his brother died the same way, through the same drug dealer, bought the same drugs.
This is Cameron's father, Danny Hart.
They're selling death out there, and it happens so fast. I've met so many mothers recently that are going through the same thing. It's just mind-boggling how many it's happened to you. How many people got up there and spoke of other friends of Cameron's that died the same way. I just want to see a stop to it. They're selling death.
Martfeld said he had a drug problem too, but got sober 4 years ago and was pushing his best friend to do the same. Cameron told Martfeld's mother he was ready to take that step.
But he told me, this is my Christmas gift to you. I'm going to get sober. And he hugged me, and I hugged him, and I said, oh, I hope so, Cameron.
Cameron died 5 days later before he could deliver on that promise.
But what he was doing was trying to get into a rehab. He kept crying to me like a week before this happened, saying he knows he's going to die if he doesn't get help. They would take him, they would get back to him by New Year's. They said they would probably have him in by New Year's. And they didn't make it that far.
Another life lost to fentanyl, another family devastated. This one, twice. With one new fentanyl overdose death every 3 days last year in Kern County, maybe the odds of it taking two brothers weren't as astronomical as it might have seemed. Not with a drug as popular, plentiful, and deadly as fentanyl. An incredibly minuscule dose can be fatal. The toxicity of most opioids, drugs like heroin, are measured in milligrams. Fentanyl is so potent, it's sometimes measured in micrograms, 1/1000th of a milligram. And 700 micrograms, about the size of a single grain of salt, can be fatal. This kilo brick of seized fentanyl is enough to kill every man, woman, and child in Bakersfield. Merely touching it can cause, and has caused, a medical emergency. That's why law enforcement officers are required to take special precautions when they handle it. Masks, double gloves. It's so toxic, even the slightest absorption through the skin can cause someone to pass out. Look what it did to this police officer handing seized fentanyl in Bartlesville, Oklahoma last year. He recovered. Bakersfield Police Detective Peter Bigley, who we can't show here because of the undercover nature of his job, says fentanyl's toxicity is matched only by its profitability.
If they buy a kilo of fentanyl, they're able to turn that into $10 to $20 million off of that 1 kilo.
When it's taken in combination with another opioid like heroin or oxycodone, as is often the case with illicitly manufactured counterfeit pills, even the tiniest dose of fentanyl can be fatal. And you can buy some right now, today, on social media platforms like Snapchat, from your friendly neighborhood drug dealer.
So on social media, they'll post what would be kind of their menu. They're pretty blatant about it.
Hey, look at these great deals, like one of those supermarket circulars you get in your mailbox, except this is on your phone, or your kid's phone. We're sharing these painful stories because fentanyl, a chemical cousin of heroin and opium, has arrived in Kern County with widespread ruthlessness. And Kern County families are not prepared. They don't know what it is, where their family members are getting it, or what it can do to them. Families need to grasp the unforgiving finality of a fentanyl overdose now, not after it hits home. Next, the manufacturing process and why there's so much danger associated with the drug. What constitutes a bad batch, and what's in it that's proving so deadly? I'll tell you when I take another look at fentanyl, the counterfeit killer. For 17 News, Robert Price.
All right.
This
there
cheap
you
American
have it.
drone destroyed the billion-dollar drone.
I wanted to put that out there because I wanted to make sure that the information that was given was very, very clear and precise and to the point, and I think it has been placed right where it needs to be. I thank all of you for tuning in. Again, the gentleman said that this This is something that the community has to tackle. They are selling these items on the internet, and that's why I'm telling you that your children could be in the room ordering up drugs in the room, and you open the door and they're found dead in the room. My son is a candidate for it. They think that their lives are so messed up that the first thing they'll do is to look for a way out because of the weakness of their mind. And unfortunately, no child is off limits to that. So I wanted to put this information out there. I thank all of you for tuning in. Remember, you only get one chance to try this, and that one chance could be fatal. The fentanyl pills are being cracked up into like as if though everyone is a street pharmacist and knows how much of a dosage to put into the marijuana, into the heroin. Again, I had this that counterfeit fentanyl is being found in Adderall. Adderall is one of the pills that they give to ADHD and behavioral people with behavior issues. They ended my video on Instagram. I guess the topic is not an easy one to talk about. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in. Again, Adderall, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, all laced with fentanyl. I thank you all for tuning in. This is Jamil Zamir out of Manning, South Carolina, still fighting the battle against the internet to try to do the right thing. Maybe I should have some strippers on with me next time when I'm talking. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you so very much for tuning in to this month installment of the 19 Report. I am your host, Brother Johnny. I walked a thin line between right and wrong, took my fears to God, then I wrote this song. The spirit kept calling, so I answered the phone, and then I manned up and got some backbone. My mind resonates at a much higher tone, solid foundation, empire zone. 3 mountains, I'm in one, right to left counted, 9 and then 1, left to right switch it, 1 and then 9, west to east, south to north, a thin line. I know Christ exists, cause his mercy allows me a chance to stand 3 on a square. Yeah, we in there. This is Brother Johnny of Groove 19 Promotions.